Dead, your god is dead. Fools, your god is dead. Useless prayers of lies, behold Satan's rise. Crush the priest, the feeble church, the family of dog, lust upon my altar. Solo, solo, solo. Demons attack with hate. Satan in the fires of hell awaits. Shout out. Death against you all. God, hear my death call. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. From that terrible poetry performance, you've probably gleaned we are talking about Morbid Angel's, I would argue, first album, Ulcers of Madness from 1989. With me, as always, here on Thunderdome Metal Reviews, your church for heavy metal, are Gabe Cooper, Ben Lindsay, and Tracy Newport. How are you, gentlemen?
Excellent.
Well, some old school death. I'm great.
Living the dream.
It's certainly a dream. Tampa, circa 1989. Yeah, I'm super pumped because we already. I love how I'm talking about in the editorial. We made us listen to Covenant, which, as I said, was the masterclass of death metal. If that's the masterclass, this is death metal 101. This is what you take as like a freshman. Like, this is what I mean. It was like genre defining, and in a way that I think is to this day superior to even a lot of what came after it. I mean, of course, I would say that, but I did not and do not like this album as much as when I got on the ride, because I got on the ride at Covenant, like a ton of people, and Damnation, and went back to Blessed, which I, of course, also listened to this week. But then I went backwards to this album, and the production was, I'm a bit of a production whore. But if anything, I appreciate this album even more now. This album fucking rocks. And I was very glad to listen to it more times than we probably needed to do this podcast, but
sure. So this is Ulcers of Madness. It is the debut album by Morbid Angel, released in 1989. It was recorded in Morrisound Recording Studios in Tampa, Florida. Released on Combat.
Surprise.
Yeah, surprise, surprise. Produced by Dig and Morbid Angel. Dig, by the way, is the guy who owned Earache. So, runtime is 38 minutes and 53 seconds. The band was David Vincent on bass and vocals, Frey Ezekhoff on guitars, Richard Brunel on guitars, and Pete the Commando Sandoval on drums.
It's a good lineup.
Oh, super good lineup. I mean, the only thing hindering this album, in my opinion, the only two things, because I don't think that it has quite the complexity of songwriting that their other stuff does, which is like fucking phenomenal. But the production on this,
I know,
if you listen to our last review and we were talking about 6 Feet Under album from 1997, which granted is almost a full fucking decade later, but recorded at probably the same studio, just so much better produced. But this also, David mentioned the shout out to Hell Awaits. This reminds me in a lot of ways of that early Slayer, or the production on Kill 'Em All, which also wasn't that great, but just the production on those early thrash metal albums. And I would say that as much as those albums correctly, especially the Slayer one, get credit for, helping create speed metal and black metal and death metal, what this becomes, this really does shape things for the next fucking 20 years.
It does. And even its bad production, I think, becomes the paradigm for
especially
second wave. That's what I was going for second wave black metal. When they reject the turn this very band takes, they double down on how this sounds.
Yeah.
Right. And some of the neo thrash does that, I think, with the old thrash. So
there's some like modern thrash bands that are kind of going in this route, the ones who also throw in more black metal elements in there. And these guys are kind of straddling that line between death metal and black metal with this album, I think, as well too.
I could see that,
because Sandoval is just going batshit insane on the drums.
He is,
and he's got a lot of very black metal beats going on.
He does. It didn't exist in that same way yet, but yes.
No, but I mean, he probably laid the foundation. Like, I'm going to take this here and just.
Yeah, this album has pretty much all of the right moves as far as I'm concerned. Relentless drumming, this heavy chugging bass, tempo changes, you've got the squealing guitar lines. It ticks a lot of boxes for me. And I think what makes it stand out, in addition to how good it sounds from the production, is also this like mind bendy and kind of warped feel that you get.
Yes.
Like the solos, they kind of remind me of Hendrix in a certain way.
I agree with that.
not that they're as like virtuosic or anything, but just like the way that they sound in the mix reminds me of kind of that like a nightmarish high, you know. Like,
I mean, I think this album cover, dude.
Yeah.
yeah,
Right?
just
Like
the
this.
cover. The cover tells you quite a lot. It's like it's pretty nuts.
Because
And like one thing that I couldn't stop thinking of, like when I was listening to it, was it's just such a sensory overload. Like the whole
Oh,
thing
yeah.
is just completely overwhelming. And if you read it just a little bit about what Trey Azagthoth was saying about his goals for this kind of
Yeah,
music that
I
he was
have.
making, it makes a lot of sense in what came out because it's just like how can I just blow everybody away? Like what are the things that I can do in this composition, but also in the production and the way that it sounds to just like, you know, just smoke them, you know?
Yeah, because this is where they start playing with like phasing, that that sort of up and down sound that they use to such deadly effect later. Pete the Commando Sandoval doesn't give you even 1 second to breathe. There's actually a little more of that on their later albums. Here he's just hitting you repeatedly. And I agree, this is sort of evil psychedelic in some ways, a little bit. So
Well,
much
there's
fun
a-
off this album. Yeah, please, Ben.
There's also a level, and I said that the songwriting was in places or later stuff. I still stand by that, but there is a deepness probably isn't the right word, but there is a certain level of intelligence behind the lyrics in this that not always present in death metal.
That's accurate.
And I really appreciated that. And it gets better and more complex as the band evolves. But all the elements that make Morbid Angel, I think, at least in my and David's opinion, and I won't speak for Gabe or Tracy, like the preeminent death metal band, or at least one of them, is all that stuff. And you can see it here, which is not always the case on the debut level.
I agree with that. David Vincent's vocals aren't quite there yet. Like he, all that needs to come along. But I think this has, and I'll shut up. I'm sorry. I love this Morbid Angel. I think this album is weathered better than the Cannibal Corpse Obituary or like Suffocation from this year. And I like those bands, but not like this. This is, even the band notwithstanding, this is just better. It's just better.
Yeah, this is definitely better than that first Gung Ho Tribe, I Cannibal Corpse and Eat Back to Life.
Yes.
This album, the production does suffer, but this reminds me as if you had a bunch of 17 to 20-year-old kids going, you have 5 hours in the studio and basically they just do everything in the kitchen sink and we're going to do it as fast as we can and as hard as we can and just went for it. One thing that I think they also grow into is like David Vincent's bass isn't as prominent in the mix on this album as it was on Covenant or Damnation, which I think is kind of sad. I think
I just couldn't do it. It's just like a tinny cheap. It's just cheap.
Yeah. But this was the first time I've heard this album ever. And it took about 4 listens for it to really to kind of me to catch on to it. Because like it grew on me with each listening. Because when I first heard this, I was like, man, this is just see. Like I was like, I don't know about this album.
Awesome.
But to be fair, this is also like way shorter than an average Tracy album.
It's like half a Tracy album.
How can you expect him to get into it?
Yeah, it's over before he's even started thinking about it.
It's over before you start thinking about it. And it's just...
It's also a wall of sound, as Gabe said, right? It's just like a tsunami of destruction hitting you.
And it takes about the 3-4 listens to really start to pick out the nuance and the differentiation in the tracks on here. And to even go into the sound of like the Hendrix style, like solos is like, and like most like composition you see when people write solos, it kind of adds to the song that's in the mix but doesn't take away. On this album it sounds like they literally just ripped the solo away from the song, like, and here you go. It's such a like discordant sound to an extent on it.
I'm going to use what Tracy just said about needing to listen to this 3 or 4 times to get into it to explain why there were a couple days this week I listened to this album 3 or 4 times.
You just want an excuse.
I mean, no, Tracy said it's part of the method. So
he did it. He literally said that. So,
oh man.
But it was 3 or 4 times over the week for me. It was 3 or 4 times in a day for you.
Yeah, I listened to him a whole lot this week. I was like, oh no, Morbid Angel, what terrible homework you've given me.
I don't know what happened, but somehow iTunes replayed it twice without me even stopping.
Oh no, it's on repeat forever. Oh, but then I was like, I obviously need Covenant and Blessed. Like I listened to all the other Morbid Angel too. I just wanted
I don't know that I've
context,
ever
y'all.
heard Blessed, honestly.
It's awesome. It's coming.
So is that going to be the next
Oh,
one to
sure.
finish
Yeah,
your?
challenge accepted. That's how I'm gonna finish out the secret original lineup blast.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure
Awesome.
that, like you, I got on the ride at Covenant. It might have been this one. But it was actually the guitarist in our band who introduced me to Morbid Angel, and Justin was his name. But yeah, the elements are all here, even in this earliest incarnation.
I want to give a shout out to Peter Commando Sandoval, who
I'll do.
Holy God. I mean, I think last time we talked about the story where they played a drum machine track without telling him. They're like, man, this guy's faster than you. And he got furious and went home and like some sort of ghastly death metal version of the what is that hideous thing about the black railroad worker versus the machine?
John Henry.
Yeah.
John Henry.
Yep.
So anyway, he comes back and beats the machine. They're like, dude, we were kidding. It's like, what the fuck? But I guess
If anybody can stand and look Gene Hoglan in the eye as a drummer,
it's this one.
yeah, for this genre
mean,
anyway, it's Pete Commando Sandoval. Yeah.
You can take the boy out of El Salvador, but not the El Salvador out of the boy. I mean, this guy, hard as nails. So it's amazing. And he, eventually almost kind of wrecks his body some. Like it's just this kind of like vocalists, you can't do this forever. Or, Trey Azik's this is when he was slicing himself to pieces on stage. This was that phase.
Well, that's the thing, man. And I never saw any of this, and I think you did see some of them, but this scene was insane with the stage shows at the time. Insane. I mean, we're talking like damn near fucking G.G. Allen levels of like self-mutilation and depravity.
It was horrifying. But then offstage, they were like straight edge. But that scene was kind of like that. I think that's all that energy was going in here, into this. There wasn't nearly as many groupies either, or it was just very different than say.
No, I can't imagine.
Crew.
I'm not saying that there. Yeah, I'm not saying that there weren't groupies. There's also a shit ton of dudes.
With so many dudes that were so
as
mad.
Anthrax has complained about a lot.
I complain about it too.
Yeah,
be better.
Sure. Yeah,
be better.
All right, so let's talk about some tracks.
Someone that isn't me.
So, Immortal Rites, Suffocation, I think, are a great 1-2 punch. Chapel of Ghouls, Damnation. I think ends well on Evil Spells as well.
I'll go. I do think Immortal Rites and Evil Spells are a good opener closer. Visions from the Dark Side, epic. Maze of Torment, epic. Lord of All Fever and Plague might be my favorite song on here. Plead for the Devil, which sounds like a Motley Crue song, ironically enough.
It really does.
It's awesome. Yeah, and then Damnation and Blasphemy, which is like, let's steal these from Venom and like put them on our album. Yeah, this is just a lot. A lot of the tracks are badass.
Yeah, I don't think there's a song on here that I dislike, but I think that my kind of favorite run would probably be like 2 to 6 or 3 to 6. Like those are really a solid run, and within that, I think that Maze of Torment and Chapel of Ghouls are really my top ones on this record. They're just so incredible. But like I said, there's a ton on here to like.
I'm going to alter what Tracy said slightly. I think Immortal Rites through Evil Spells is a great 1 through 10 punch, right? Like it's just each track hits you. They're all amazing. I fucking love this album end to end. Can and did listen to it repeatedly. The ones I want to highlight are the same ones Gabe did. I really love Maze of Torment, and I really like Chapel of Ghouls, where it gets spooky scary. Like that's where they're starting to like. Well, they do a lot of that later. Even Blessed slows it down some. They start playing with kind of atmospherics. And I really dig. I think Blasphemy and Evil Spells are both awesome. That's the phasing starts. Random machine guns that make no sense that they cut out of the remaster are there. Like, why is this happening? Anyway, it's not explained.
Maybe they were wearing bullet belts. I don't know.
Anyway, this album, other than tracks 1 through 10, none of them are good.
Well, all right.
So David, tell us how you really feel about it. What you grade?
All of them drink. Oh, how I feel about it? This album's an A, man. I mean, I like Covenant better and I like Domination better, but it is foundational to the genre and other genres that we talked about. It's still fucking badass. It's historically important. It is an A for me. It's not an A plus just because it does have some production problems and they haven't quite come into their own yet. But that's what A plus is for, where I put those other albums. So it's an A.
So I'm gonna ask. I'm gonna go ahead and take the lower end of our rankings, and Ben and Gabe can fill in the middle, most likely. I'm going to give this a B, sitting in like an 83.5, 84. It took me a lot to get into this, and once I got into it, it was good. But I mean, it took 4 or 5 listens for it to get it. And when I first heard it, I was willing to give it a C, C minus.
Well, I'll take it. It's not for everyone.
So, what am I going to grade this thing? I agree with David. I think that there's a lot of people in the scene who probably think this is their best album.
They do.
But I prefer Covenant and Dominion to this. And honestly, I think that Warpath was more fun than this, but I think this is. So I was initially thinking an A minus, but because of the legacy of I might give it a half a grade bump and come in at an A with David on it.
That's what I did, because it is kind of an A minus album, but it's so important. It's like Kill 'Em All, as you know. I don't like as much as the later ones, but I admit, like without it, there's nothing but void.
Exactly. Well, Rain and Blood. I mean, let's talk about Slayer. That is an incredibly important album. I don't think it's Slayer's best, but it's
Same.
Yeah.
So I don't have as much history with this band as David or Ben do, but I really, really dug this record, and it is making me want to go back to Covenant and Domination and to see how they stack up now that I've heard this one. I think I'm going to give this an A. I put down like 7 of the 10 tracks as things that I really liked, and I didn't dislike any of them. So I think it's a pretty good sign. And I really enjoy how it sounds, whatever production issues might be.
Love it. Hell yeah, Morbid Angel, you did it again, guys. So what is it? That's our average then, probably like a 91 or something.
It is a 92.
92.
I'll take that the lower ground, and you guys are like, well, fine, we're just gonna be all at the top.
Oh yeah, A's across the board.
Tracy's by himself, which I'm used to.
Speaking of being by yourself, what are we doing next, Tracy?
And next, we are doing Herkta's 2020 release, Ufang. Did I say that right?
Yeah, I think you did, and it just makes me want to say oof for reasons we'll get into when we talk about it. There's a lot going on here, y'all. I have a reason why I chose it as well. Well, keep it a secret.
I will.
Yeah, tease it, man.
Yeah, you got to stay tuned on the next episode of Thunderdome Metal Reviews.
Dulcimer.